Yeah, exactly. It is 6:30, and I will call the council meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller,
Here.
Counselor Eber,
Here.
Counselor Holland,
Here.
Counselor McGuire,
Here.
Counselor Robinson,
Here.
Counselor Fisher.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda is a presentation from the Homeless Awareness and Action Task Force, South Metro. And I will turn it over to Director Workman to give us a lead-in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members of City Council. As just was alluded to, the Homeless Awareness Action Task Force South Metro is here to make a presentation for you all this evening. Staff was contacted by them a few months ago after being referred by the City of Sheridan. They're a really interesting, very exciting group of folks that have a mission to help the unhoused, especially during major weather events in the wintertime. And knowing council's interested in housing and homelessness as a regional issue, we thought it would be good for them to make a presentation in order to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves. So with that, we do have two members here to speak. Ms. Tammy Silfer, Program Director, and Brad Arnold, Treasurer on the Board of Directors.
Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the time to come. I'll start off again. I'm Brad Arnold. I'm the treasurer. Maybe this will kind of give you an idea of why we're here. I have a finance background. My last job was 20 plus years at Cherry Creek School District as controller. Retired last year and had more time to volunteer. Years ago, I hooked up with a women's homeless shelter in downtown Denver and became very involved with the needs of our collective community and kind of the tough spots some people are in. And when I retired, I wanted to find a place closer to home. I live a little bit south around University, Dry Creek area. So I started where do the people in the south part of town go? And from what I could find, they go to Denver. There's really nowhere around. Ultimately, I ended up finding food banks to volunteer. And it wasn't until through my church I even discovered Hat Force, and Tammy will give more information on the background of that. But really, if you're in the south part of town, there's nowhere really any place to go. Luckily, Hat Force exists, but in my mind, it's kind of like a bare minimum. It's only taking care of people when the weather is awful. So most of the time, they're out on their own doing their thing. But if you think about it, bare minimum, it's saving people's lives because it's when the temperatures are awful. So I think we'll kind of go through the slides a little bit. Tammy has a good background of what Hat Force is. We'll go through that and then certainly answer any questions that you have.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thanks for having us. And Brad is correct. We don't have any shelters in South Denver. And Hat Force has been around for 15 years. And we began with helping people that were the most vulnerable in our community. So the elderly, families, disabled, and their caregivers, pregnant women, people with pets. These often don't qualify for local shelters in Denver. Through that, we have been providing motel vouchers to these most vulnerable populations for the last 15 years. Just recently, actually this time last year, we received notice from Severe Weather Shelter Network, which handled individuals experiencing homelessness in a local church in Inglewood. And they ended up closing their doors with unforeseen circumstances, and now we had a gap within our community. And so our board decided that they would expand our realm of services to all individuals experiencing homelessness. Thank you to the funding of local cities, our Arapahoe County, DOLA, churches, foundations, and private individuals to help fund that expansion this last season. And what we found out is that now we are the only sheltering organization in South Denver, specifically in the Tri-Cities region, but also in Arapahoe County, that provide motel vouchers during severe weather events. This closure of Severe Weather Shelter Network grew our organization exponentially, and we then grew to be about 300 clients this season. And there's, I think, a slide to show some of that impact here. We had 561 vouchers issued and 38 nights of sheltering. Through our referrals with our local partners, we were able to have 9 people permanently housed. This has expanded our operation 3 times over, and we are now looking for this season an increase of homelessness during this weather season coming up from October to April. I wanted to share a little bit about how we partner with local agencies. We understand that addressing homelessness is polarizing. We're here to be a resource for you. We value our partnerships, and we partner with a lot of local agencies, first responders, cities, local governments, churches and businesses. The way that we can partner together really depends on what your needs are. A lot of times organizations support ours by doing local clothing and food collection, referring us for volunteerism, as well as with funding. And I'm going to let Brad share just a little bit about our infrastructure and financial budget.
So as Tammy said, things have grown quite a bit with Hat Force, from pulling together a group of like-minded churches really 15 years ago to provide something, to where really kind of being the only provider. We think the budget probably needs to be somewhere around $600,000 to try and meet the needs that are out there. And again, this, to me, this is just at a minimum level of taking care of real severe things. We have up there 570, a very specific number, but in the range of $600,000 probably. Funding last year, we were able to pull in around $400,000. It's a little tricky working with the different cities, Inglewood, Littleton, that are using our services a lot, grants from the state and others, what the final numbers are. But kind of what we're realizing, what we haven't had is like a development director really working with individuals and organizations to help bring in fundraising. So we're kind of at that pivotal point. Does Hat Force get a little bit bigger, handle more? So that's kind of what we're shooting for. The structure is small. We run it out of a small Methodist church off Broadway in Inglewood, where that's where we do the vouchering, where people come in to get services. They come in, we check them in, get them set up with what motel they'll go to, give them a place to hang out, because usually the weather's bad at that point, and give them a lunch. And then when they go to the hotel, we give them a meal to take with them. And if it's the event where it's more than a single night of bad weather, we'll keep them at the hotel, then we'll deliver food to them. So that's kind of volunteers we have. So small staff, a lot of volunteers. Church is great. It's a very small lease we have with them. So really kind of information for the city. This is what we do, available out there. And you got a personal story to share.
Yes, I'd love to just share about Tiffany. So this is Tiffany. Tiffany is disabled. She has multiple sclerosis. And she shared a little bit with me the other day, and I wanted to just kind of share that with you. Tiffany receives disability income, but it's not enough to cover her living expenses. She and her elderly father lived together, and then they received notice of 46 days to move out of their apartment and find a new place to live. They were unable to secure enough funding for first and last rent, and as well as housing within that 46-day time. Her father went into assisted living, and she became homeless. A friend offered a pop-up camper in their backyard for her to stay in. It doesn't have any heat or running water or a place to cook. She had a car, but it was broken down. And this is where she lives, in the backyard of a friend's house, and is able to use their restroom for a shower and utilities there. She is capable of working part-time, but with her disability, it's really difficult to find an employer that would accommodate her medical appointments as well as her monthly transfusion she receives. And so she does have to take public transportation, which is oftentimes 2 hours one way to her appointments. So that limits her availability for employment. So she decided she would like to volunteer with HapForce. So she came and volunteered and was so grateful for the motel vouchers that she's been receiving for the last couple of years since she's been homeless during the severe weather nights, because she doesn't have heat in her camper. So Tiffany came and volunteered. She was a greeter. She helped to serve lunch. She was able to increase her skill. We quickly realized she has a great eye for detail, and she is a great administrative assistant. So we moved her up in her volunteer responsibilities this year to be an administrative assistant, as well as to help with our vouchering process. Through the course of that, I want to share a quote from Tiffany. She says, "I am so grateful for HapForce and the motel vouchers they provide. With my medical condition, this is crucial for my health. To sleep in a warm bed, have my own restroom, and food to eat is such a generous blessing. I want to do all I can in volunteering to help this organization who has given so much to me." We're happy to report that Tiffany was a stellar volunteer, that we decided this year that we were going to hire her as one of our seasonal part-time employees. And so she now works for us at HapForce. Due to her due diligence and her employment at HapForce, she now qualifies for housing, and she was just recently approved and hopes to be into a permanent residence and apartment by the next 6 months. She hopes to continue to be working with us. As Brad mentioned, we have very seasonal employees, and we would love to be able to extend that year-round to continue to support individuals like Tiffany. I will say that we love that she is a person of lived experience and of peer support, and can also encourage our fellow clients to also seek to get out of homelessness. And that is really our hope and our mission at HapForce, is to not only just help people in saving their lives during severe weather events, but also to help them with an outward trajectory of homelessness. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Do people have questions? I have a question. Just I know you mentioned that you partner with Tri-Cities, which is Littleton, Sheridan, Englewood, right? And that also get some. Do you get grant funding from Arapahoe County, or?
We do. We receive some grant funding from Arapahoe County from CDBG funding. Mm-hmm. We are also in communication with Centennial about some of their funding availability. We do receive a small grant from Douglas County, okay. Actually from Lone Tree, because the light rail drops people off in Lone Tree. Mm-hmm. And so if it becomes after a certain time period, they have no public transportation to send them to Douglas County Services, which is in Castle Rock. There's no public transportation to Castle Rock. So they partner with us to send clients to us from there.
And so there's no shelter even in that kind of northern part of Douglas County either.
Correct.
In the yeah.
There's no sheltering in Douglas County or in the one shelter that we have in Arapahoe County is Comitas, and they just recently changed to families only.
Okay. And where is that even located? Do you know?
In Aurora.
Okay. So, because I mean, Arapahoe County is really big.
Mm-hmm.
Counselor? Yeah, go ahead.
Where are the motels generally located? Are they the ones along Broadway?
Yes, we have two on Broadway, mm-hmm. and then we have one that we use in Lakewood that is right next to a bus stop, so it's a direct drop-off, and then there is one in Aurora that we partnered with this year. And we're looking to expand that partnership to now include one in Centennial, and we're working with a partner right now in Littleton to try to extend that closer and keeping our funds kind of in our county.
Thank you.
Councilor Fisher?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Mr. Arnold. So good to see you. And you are very lucky to have him. I can tell you that he is a wonderful worker and partner. So you guys are lucky. I looked at your website, and I was interested in some of the partners, and I was curious how that works. I, for years, have taken donations to Giving Heart. Do you guys know where that is? It's right at Quincy and Broadway. So like they'll refer people to you? Is that what it is? And then sort of the same way, when you get funding from, like you just gave the example of Lone Tree. So if they give you money, is that money earmarked only for transporting people who want to get to Lone Tree? Do you see what I
Yes,
mean? Like,
great
is that
question.
money sort of earmarked or, okay.
So no, it's not earmarked for just Douglas County. They just support our work through that and use us as a resource when and if they do have homeless individuals that they come across, or like I mentioned, someone ends up in Lone Tree. The footprint of Inglewood goes all the way up to Meridian, Lone Tree, Lincoln, and so oftentimes their police department is handling some of the unhoused individuals that might be there after hours. And so they just make a donation to us in order to be able to accommodate when they need those services. But it is not earmarked only for Douglas County or Lone Tree clients. We partner well with Movement 5280, Giving Heart, Bemis Library, Arapahoe County Libraries, the City of Sheridan, their clinic, Doctors Care, other agencies that regularly have clients that are unhoused or are in very dire situations. IFCS is another one. Part of that is that our clients typically don't have phones and they don't have any way of communication. So when they go to a day shelter like Giving Heart, which is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or they go to Movement 5280 that's open other days of the week, or they go to the library to warm up, or any of those locations that I mentioned, those agencies are communicating to them that today is a severe weather day. We have a hotline number. They allow them to use their phone and call into the hotline to find out whether or not we're open. We have a mass communication that goes out to a large distribution list of partner agencies and city agencies to tell them daily, are we open or are we closed during the season? And that's how clients really hear about us, is through their caseworker or through the librarian or through one of the volunteers at Giving Heart or Life Center, and so they're able to then make their way over for their voucher.
Then I also have a question for our chief. So when you all encounter somebody, who do you call? Have you called Task Force?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. Just like anything, in terms of the law enforcement response, the situation dictates the tactic, right? Dictates the response. So given the situation that we're dealing with, whether they're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, we have local criminal charges, or a family that might be in need of the specific service, having that network of service, that network of resources is really key for us. We're certainly familiar with the organization, have used and will continue to use their services. So thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, yeah, Councilor McGuire.
So extreme weather I tend to think of in the winter, but do you house people at all in the summer when with the weather getting hotter and hotter?
Yes, unfortunately, we do not. We only operate vouchering during severe weather season at this point. That's all our budget has been able to support. So we're open from October 1st through April 30th. During the summer months, we partner closely with our cities to try to, especially Inglewood, they're really open to having cooling centers at the rec center during the day. Of course, the libraries in all three of the Tri-Cities to be open to help with that. But we are unable to, at this time, to do motel vouchering in the summer.
I know Volunteers of America does a lot with the homeless. I know in Denver and Lakewood at least. I'm assuming other areas, but they don't have anything down
this way, or do you guys work with them at all, or have they been a resource for you?
Yes, we do not work with VOA. I will say from the homeless perspective, for families and individuals experiencing homelessness that live in this region, they would like to stay in this region. This is where their community is. Their kids go to school here. They have supporting agencies that they can utilize and resource providers. So many of them, when we encourage them to go to services in Denver, are not open to that because this is where they live. And so VOA does not have any type of services here. I know they partner with Malley Rec Center in Inglewood and provide lunch to seniors. So we try to refer our elderly clients to the city of Inglewood to see if they can comp them a membership there so they're able to obtain lunch on days that are during the summer especially. And I would also say that we partner with our school districts or our McKinney-Vento liaisons, which are the liaisons at each school district that are to identify homeless students and their families. And so we partner closely with those liaisons to help with vouchering with the families specifically. And oftentimes they're referring those families to us for services.
Counselor Eber.
Thank you very much for your work that you're doing. Where would be the best way to get non-monetary donations to your organization, or is there a specific location?
We're located at Spirit of Hope Church off Lincoln, so that would be Broadway and Quincy. So we're right around the corner from you here.
Okay.
And so we're located on Lincoln Street. And the church there is very gracious to allow people to come and drop off donations there. Most of our staff is remote, but we do have an office there, and they allow us to come there and meet you or anyone. We can also do pickups. We have some volunteers that come by and do all the pickups.
What about in the context of food products? Are they also allowed to be dropped off there?
They are, and we typically accept non-perishable items at this point. We do, during the winter season, have different groups and organizations that will prepare a lunch, some that will prepare a group meal and then freeze it in individual containers so that we can send that with our guests to the motel. So most of ours will probably be updating a list on our website, but we do have a list of high protein, nutritious as can be shelf stable items that are microwavable.
And I would just comment to you that over in the Tamarack Square area, I know that Jewish Family Services does a whole pantry as well as offer an awful lot of services as well. So if you haven't set up a relationship with them, I'd be more than happy to try and help.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you for that. They have a mobile food pantry that's also coming to the Arapahoe County location in Inglewood, which is right across the street from us as well. So that is a great connection.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? City Manager Kramer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I might ask you to talk a little bit more. You had a slide about needs and some long-term needs or longer-term needs. I don't know if we can go back to that. That one right there. A permanent supportive housing. I know that when we talked previously, you had talked about some of the changes or benefits that you saw during COVID when you had an opportunity to house folks for longer stretches, and that you relayed that you might have some longer term ideas. I don't want to say plans or definitive anything, but you know, as council considers a potential partnership, I think they would like to hear what your long-term vision is.
Sure. I can share our history during COVID pandemic 2020. We received quite a bit of funding, and that funding allowed us to house people in motels all year long. So we ended our severe weather season in April, and they allowed that funding to go all the way to the next season in October. And during that time frame, we partnered with an agency that helped us with case management, and those direct referral connections, we were able to have every one of those families and individuals housed by the end of the season. So we know it works if we do housing first. And so if we are able to house people and then do direct referrals, we're able to get them out of homelessness. Unfortunately, our model with using motels, we have very little face time with those clients because then they're off to a hotel. So our desire is to be able to have a more sustainable model for this area. We don't have plans, and Brad and I were just chatting before this meeting of our working on our strategic plan. What does it look like moving forward? We know the need is going to be great. We know that we have to do something. People do, especially families and those that are disabled, they need a place, not in their vehicle, to live. And so we would really be open to expanding our services to support a permanent supportive housing model to where it would be low barrier for people to come in. And then we would establish what they need through triaging their case management, what resources and navigation do we need to do for them, and then have really a permanent supportive housing model. We'd love a high-rise building in Sheridan, where we've been talking to Sheridan about that. But at this point, we are really just trying to be visionary of what do we really need in this area. And with doing this for 15 years, we recognize that the funding could be better utilized than motel vouchers. And we would really like to invest that back into an infrastructure that could support families in our region.
Did you have something else, right? Yeah.
I guess the question is when you mention a high-rise in Sheridan, is it better to have one larger facility or more smaller facilities scattered around the region?
I think that depends on need. We cannot classify an unhoused person as the general need for everyone. Our focus has been on disabled individuals and their caregivers, and there's just not a shelter or a program for that. Families have different needs than disabled adults. Elderly have different needs than families. And so there needs to be more than just one model, but I think HAPFORCE could support those that are disabled and families. That would probably be our hone-in focus, because that's what we focused on for the last 15 years. And then allow another organization that handles individuals that have dual diagnosis, substance misuse, and mental health issues to be able to hone in on that. So there's varying degrees of homelessness and the needs that people have and how they become homeless. And so I think having a large facility is helpful, but I think we also need individual buildings throughout the region that could support different populations, even like youth aging out of foster care.
And then just one other question, and that is, of the disabled population that you're able to work with, what, if any, percentage do you see are former military or veterans or in need of services?
We did see quite a bit of veterans. I think it's on our last slide there when we talked about impact. We saw 13 veterans, and in the Tri-Cities area, we're a part of the Built for Zero program, which is a line-by-line case management focus on veterans first. And this year, Arapahoe County was at 0 for veterans experiencing homelessness after they were triaged. So when we saw them and we recognized there were 13 veterans, we put them on this by name list with Built for Zero, and then there's a whole case management rollout. And those particular veterans are then matched with the VOA, with a homeless liaison, and then they're helped out of homelessness and housing right away. There's a lot of resources related to that. So we have a fast track through Built for Zero.
Councilor Fisher.
I have one more comment. A model that I think works really well is part of Mile High Ministries. Are you familiar with their Joshua Station location? We've supported them for years, and I don't know, I think they're only families at this point, but very exciting. I'm glad that Chris asked that question. So if you do, if you are able to expand in that direction,
We
It's
would
another
not want to
connection.
recreate the wheel. We would want to
Right.
partner with agencies that do it well.
Right.
And so we do have partnerships with them and relationships with several agencies that do that well. And I will say, if you haven't heard yet, Bridge House Ready to Work has opened in Inglewood, and this is their third location. And they have one in Boulder and one in Aurora, and they have been successful with individuals experiencing homelessness, getting them into a 12 to 18-month program, and they work right away, and they work with them and house them, and it's a residential program, and that just opened in June, early of this month. Bridge House Ready to Work program. And so that is now a direct referral for us for our individuals experiencing homelessness that would potentially qualify for their intake process to be temporarily, transitionally housed there while being able to build their resume and work. And that program allows them to keep a third of their income in their pocket, a third to go towards their room and board there, and a third that goes into a savings account that really helps them after they've graduated from the program. So we're really excited to have a new partner locally to be able to refer our individuals to. But we would definitely link arms in a permanent supportive housing and try to model it around those that are successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I do know that just in working with the other mayors, that the mayors of, or the cities of Littleton, Inglewood, and Sheraton are obviously very supportive and have spoken very highly of this program. And so I think that it is worth further consideration, I believe, and I guess to get the opinion of council, further consideration by this council of, what we feel like a role we could play, if there is a role for us to play. So if everybody's sort of in agreement about having further conversations, I would ask staff to add that to a future agenda.
Yeah, what I would actually recommend is if council has interest in at least continuing conversation, I know that you have existing agreements with the Tri-Cities group, but that you're in conversations with folks like Centennial. If this city council would like us to have those kinds of continued conversations, I'd recommend to let us have maybe another conversation or two with them directly first, and then we may, not that we don't want to exclude you, but we may then provide a staff report to you about what we found through our conversations. That would
I
probably
think
be
that
the
would be great.
path
I mean,
would
obviously, we don't have rec centers that we can offer as shelters. We don't have a lot of things that our bigger neighbors have, but we do recognize the problem, and it is a regional problem, and no one is immune. And so I think it's worth further conversation. So, all right, well, thank you so much for coming. Audience participation. Thank you. We have one person signed up. Renee, so let me just give you the spiel first of all. Everyone, the council meetings always have a public comment period. You'll have 5 minutes to make your comments. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. And although we have a very rowdy bunch here, we just ask that the meeting, that you be respectful and maintain decorum. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Frida. I know you're a rabble rouser. So Renee, is it Marin or Morin? Morin. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
I won't take 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you. My name is Renee Morin, and I live at 1 Glenmore Circle in the Glenwood Country Club community. I winter in Arizona, and so I've just gotten back, so I haven't been to any meetings, but the country club is building, doing a remodel, and there's a potential pickleball, paddleball courts that are within 150 feet of my home. And as we all know, they're very loud. And I don't want to go into all the specifics on decibels and noise and all that. And I've noticed there's a lot of traffic, and they're parking in the street across from my house, and because there's construction, but they're talking about removing over 20 parking spaces for these pickleball courts. They don't have enough parking space as it is. They park along the street. I'm totally opposed. I'm opposed to it. And and what else? It drives property value down. Everybody knows all that. So very simple. But I just wanted to come up and say that I'm opposed to it. And if it ever comes up, I'll be back at future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So comment is always just that, it's comment, but I would encourage you to talk to our city staff. There was an application before council a few months ago. And I will just say that a pickleball has not been approved a pickleball court has not been approved by the council at this time. But I would invite you to talk to our city staff to get the background of what was considered and what has been approved, et cetera.
Thank you.
And the process. Thank you. I'm sorry. Would you like to comment?
I've been here before, and I don't mean
state
to
your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Audie. I live at 2 Glenmore, and I've represented for Renee before I was out of town. I'm sorry to take up more time on this. It's just important to us. Obviously, we're watching legal proceedings nationally and news reports and realtor reports on all this issue, and it's important to us because we're close. Renee is 120 feet from the nearest court. The science behind this shows it's 15 pops per minute, 900 pops per hour, 28,800 pops in an 8-hour period at a frequency of 120 megahertz, which the body perceives as a musical note of C6, which is the same tone to the body as a beep from a backup of a garbage truck. So it is a nuisance, and nationally it's shown that you can't mitigate enough. It has to go inside or be sufficiently distant for it not to be a nuisance. And that's why Renee is here, just to get his name on as being opposed before it's resubmitted for the parking lot that they've already taken out to resubmit for a slab. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to reports from members of city boards and commissions. Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda.
I move approval of consent agenda item 7A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Moving on to unfinished business, review of the 2024 state housing legislation. Director Workman.
Good evening once again, Madam Mayor and members of council. As was just mentioned, the next item on your agenda is a discussion related to the 2024 housing legislation. Council has discussed this issue 3 previous times this year. If you recall, in February, the topic was discussed at a study session and in an executive session as well. Council has also discussed the topic at the council retreat in March. The previous discussions have largely been centered on the infringement by the state into home rule authority granted by the state of Colorado Constitution to home rule municipalities like Cherry Hills Village. Before we get into the meat of the conversation tonight, there has been an update since the last time council discussed this issue. Excuse me. In May of this year, cities of Aurora, Arvada, Glendale, Greenwood Village, Lafayette, Westminster filed a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief against the state of Colorado and the Department of Local Affairs. The complaint also challenges Executive Order D-2025-005, which directed state agencies to identify funding opportunities for local governments the state can withhold as a punishment for local governments not complying with these state laws and others. It is important to note that the complaint was filed specific to 2 housing bills that were passed in 2024. The first one being House Bill 24-1313. You'll see in just a moment that one will be up for discussion tonight. It's referred to as the Transit-Oriented Community Bill. The other bill, which will not be discussed tonight, is House Bill 24-1304. That has to do with regulating parking for uses that the Cherry Hills Village just doesn't have, so it's not relevant. But the other one is certainly relevant, and again, it is related to these two specific pieces of legislation. So if we get back in the time machine, in 2024, the state passed essentially a whole list of housing legislation, 4 of which are relevant for discussion tonight. The first one, House Bill 24-1007, prohibits residential occupancy limits. House Bill 24-1152 mandates allowing accessory dwelling units. House Bill 24-1313 creates transit-oriented communities. And Senate Bill 24-174 requires planning for affordable housing. Unlike some of the other presentations, staff's not going to go through each of these in detail, line by line. Instead, we'll provide sort of a prompt to remind council of what it is, along with some of the dates that are included in the legislation. So as a reminder for council, effective July 1st of last year, House Bill 24-1007 stated that local governments shall not limit the number of people who may live together in a single dwelling based on their familial status. House Bill 24-1152, referred to as the ADU bill, short for accessory dwelling units. That bill says that on or after June 30th of this year, local governments have to allow at least one accessory dwelling unit between 500 and 800 square feet anywhere a single-family home is allowed through an administrative process. So the city would be unable to hold a public hearing and get public input on the specifics of allowing an ADU. The next one, House Bill 24-1313, referred to as Transit-Oriented Communities, or TOC. That bill requires on or before July 30th of this year, sorry, thank you, Jay, June 30th this year, that a transit-oriented community must calculate a housing opportunity goal, short for HOG, and then multiply their transit area by 40 dwelling units to an acre and submit that information to DOLA. The legislation goes on to say that on or before December 31st of 2027, transit-oriented communities must designate areas for transit centers and ensure those areas satisfy the requirements of the legislation. That a jurisdiction has to ensure that zoning capacity in the transit center is greater than or equal to the housing opportunity goal. Communities that qualify as a transit-oriented community have to submit a housing opportunity goal report and have it approved by DOLA. And then every 3 years thereafter, they have to submit a housing opportunity goal report and status report to DOLA. Senate Bill 24-174, Planning for Affordable Housing. This legislation says that before December 31st of 2026, and every 6 years thereafter, local government shall conduct and publish a housing needs assessment or participate in a regional housing needs assessment. Additionally, city councils must consider this assessment at a public meeting and submit that assessment to DOLA, the Department of Local Affairs. Additionally, before January 1st of 2028 and every 6 years thereafter, a local government must create a housing action plan, which must include develops legislative actions, regional coordination, and information for the public regarding efforts to address housing needs in the city. So that was a very brief summary of the previous housing legislation and what some of those dates are. As you'll find in your staff memo for this evening, the city does have some regulations both within our charter, our master plan, and our zoning ordinance. So for those that don't know, I know council is very aware, but those that may be watching later, the city does have a home rule city charter, and think of your charter as the city's constitution. right? It lays out certain obligations and responsibilities for the city council, and for the city council at any given time. Won't hit on all of these in detail, but I do want to summarize by saying that the city's home rule charter gives the city the power to local self-government and home rule authority, that council alone has the power to enact and provide for the enforcement of all ordinances for the benefit of village residents, and that the mayor and all members of council take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, including the right to due process, and the state of Colorado Constitution, including the right to home rule authority, the city's charter or constitution, to enact ordinances that are for the benefit of village residents, and the ordinances of the village, including zoning ordinance, which implements the vision of the master plan. And I know this council is very familiar with our master plan that council adopted in 2022. 3 members were members of our Citizen Advisory Task Force and can speak to that process. But during the master plan process, the outreach for that was tremendous. It was a multi-year effort where we received feedback, over 4,600 bits of information we received back. Some of the results of the questions about housing are on the screen in front of you. And what we heard loud and clear was village residents' desire to keep the pastoral, open, low-density residential neighborhoods that are truly the heritage of Cherry Hills Village. That led to the revised vision statement, which I'll read. A safe, serene, low-density residential community. It's the desire of the citizens of Cherry Hills Village to maintain and enhance the established character of the community through the implementation of the city's planning goals and actions, regulations, and decisions. The master plan process also resulted in the guiding principle for the land use chapter, which states that the predominant land use in the city will remain low-density single-family residential, which led us to land use goal number 1, which is to maintain the existing land and development pattern in the city as a primary single-family detached residential community. So we have our constitution that gives council the authority to make decisions, to approve ordinances, including the zoning ordinance. We have the master plan, which is the long-term vision for the community that went through an extensive public process and received extensive feedback. So how do we implement all that? The zoning ordinance is the tool that we use to implement the vision in the master plan. And I want to call council's attention. Again, all of this was detailed in your packet, so I won't go into detail. However, it's important to note that Chapter 16 of the city's municipal code is where the zoning ordinance is located. That governs land use and zoning here in Cherry Hills Village. Section 16-1-20 discusses the purpose of land use and the zoning in Cherry Hills Village. Essentially, the purpose is to implement the city's master plan, which reflects the shared values of city residents with respect to the semi-rural character, form, and function of future development, and to establish zone districts and development standards that maintain the semi-rural character of the city. Also in Chapter 16, there's a discussion of where the authority comes for our zoning ordinance. Specifically, the city's charter gives the city the right to establish regulations for land use and zoning as granted by Article 20, Section 6 of the Colorado Constitution. That concludes staff's presentation. Should the council wish to discuss issues related to housing, staff's available for questions.
So thank you so much for that overview and sort of a summary. I know, as you pointed out, we have discussed this at other meetings, at our council retreat, and I know many of us here were actively engaged even when this legislation was proposed and making its way through the legislature last year. So I think everyone is pretty up to speed on what this legislation involves and entails, and so I just really appreciate your summary, and in particular your references to our charter and our master plan and our current code. I don't know that we need further discussion, but if there is any comment that Someone would like to make a question, Councilor Robinson?
Can you just remind council on what basis is the legislature and Governor Polis proposing to, they must have some basis, again, I know we discussed this previously, emergency powers or some basis for proposing something that's contrary to the Constitution?
Sure. And I would offer that each piece of legislation, whether it's in the four listed or others, have their own justification. The broad umbrella approach is that there's a housing crisis and it is a mix of statewide and local concern.
That is their assertion, yes. Councilor Holt.
I don't have any questions, by the way. Good, nice presentation. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. But this is just sort of a general comment broadly. One of the things that we've seen, and certainly seen recently, is considerable unrest across the country as states and cities protest what they perceive as overreach by the federal government in the affairs that states feel are within their purview, and that historically have been so. I think we've seen this on television. The majority in our General Assembly, our governor and our Attorney General, who wants to be governor, have all been very vocal about this. Now, irrespective of how one might feel about the specific preemption actions at issue there, the concept of overreach by one higher form of government over another, in this case the feds over the states, should resonate with our General Assembly and governor as it relates to these land use and zoning actions that have been taking in the last few years and that are clearly overreach by the state over the municipalities of Colorado, and in particular, home rule municipalities. So to the governor, attorney general, and members of the General Assembly, with regard to the outrage that you are expressing towards the federal government, I can only say, now you know how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fisher.
I have a comment too. I hope I got this right, Director Woods. Let me know if I have this right. So Article 20, Section 6 in the Colorado Constitution, which is called Home Rule for Cities and Towns, grants cities like ours the sole authority to make local land use decisions. So far, so good? So as representatives of our constituents, we are expected through our zoning code to make land use decisions that are consistent with our constituents' wishes. So far, so good? So home rule allows our community members to have a say in the character of our village. So preempting home rule feels to me like the state is punishing us for building the community that works best for our current and also our future residents. That's how I was looking at it.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, and I think that concludes that. New business, there is none. Reports, I will start. It's been fairly quiet, but I do know that the grand reopening of the Quincy Farm barn is this coming Sunday. I know, regrettably, many of us are actually traveling and out of town, myself included, so I will not be able to attend, but I am delighted that I've been able to attend the barn at our ribbon cutting, and I'm so excited and so proud of what the city and the Land Preserve have been able to accomplish there. It's to see the farm moving in this direction, to really be a center for education and for the history and legacy of Cherry Hills Village is just a really exciting development. So if you're able to go, please do. And if you're watching, if you're able to attend, please do. It's going to be a really great afternoon on Sunday.
Mayor, just a
Yeah.
comment. Thank you for your Village Crier article
Oh,
to that
thank you.
about Quincy Farm. That was perfect timing and very well done.
Thank you. Obviously, it's something that's very exciting to me, so I'm always happy to write about Quincy Farm. So that is it for my mayor's report. Well, I've started down there. Let's start down here. Councilor Heller.
No report.
Tomorrow night, I have Dr. Cog meeting. I'll keep everybody posted. Wanted to remind anything, I'm sure that Chris Kramer is going to tell us also. 25th being Bike to Work Day. Come down and help the city staff and park staff, and I guess PTRC is going to help
be at the booth. So help be part of Bike to Work Day, and I look forward to hearing the results because I will be out of town.
Mayor Pro
report.
Tem Holland, no report. Councilor McGuire.
No report.
Councilor Robinson.
Just a brief observation. So, Counselor, I should call him Mayor Pro Tem Holland and I, and several of the city staff attended the Police Academy graduation a week or so ago. And I was just so impressed with the community engagement, the number of people that participated, the humor, Chief, that you showed, and it was really a terrific evening. So it made me proud to be a citizen of Cherry Hills. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fisher.
I don't have a report, but I have a question. This might be part of Director Goldie's report. I'm really curious about the trail map redesign, and is that still on schedule? Did that come to Parks and Trail was it supposed to come last week, the first draft?
Yes, so they actually had their first design meeting last week, PTRC. So it is on schedule. I can't off the top of my head remember. It will come in front of City Council because it is such a forward-facing document. We want to make sure we get your blessing. So we found a really good consultant, and PTRC is really excited about putting that new map together.
Great. Moving on to reports from city staff.
I don't know if you guys had anything.
What's that?
You guys have anything?
I do. I wanted to confirm for council, we do not have a land use application submitted for pickleball in Glenmore or anywhere else. At such time as one gets submitted, you will hear from me that we do have it submitted. Beyond that, enjoy your 4th of July.
Thank you.
I have no further report.
Chief? Nobody over there? Clerk? City attorney? City manager?
Yeah, I just, as a reminder to council, I'm going to be out of town starting Friday afternoon. I'll be back the first full week in July. So I guess happy 4th of July as well.
Well, we do have an executive session tonight, so
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS sections 24-64024B and 26-44024E for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions and determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding the request for Cherry Hills Village Sanitation District to amend and restate a wastewater connectors agreement with the city.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I further move to adjourn the city council meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Heller?
Yes.
Counselor Eber?
Yes.
Counselor Holland?
Yes.
Counselor McGuire?
Yes.
Counselor Robinson?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
That is approved unanimously.